So people need to understand that there is absolutely no shame whatsoever in
Somebody
working in
does it
certain
for him,
professions.
but it is like that when everybody does their own plumbing in their own dishes. At least dishes, regular dishes, you would want to do. Everybody, I think, does
I'm
their
sure a
own.
professional plumber earns more money than me today in Canada.
Yes, the reason why people like who are like working outdoors, who are washing windows, for instance, or garbage cleaners, are more highly paid than officers. A decent rental accommodation will cost you something around $2,000, $2,500. The traffic runs on the opposite side from ever since I've come here. There has not been a single concrete or substantial advice from even from the people in the banks. Some people say you buy things from with the credit card and then you pay it off, and that's how you build your credit. Some people say hello, everybody. How are you doing? Today, I am here with Rishin Chatterjee, my guest of honor. Rishin is the National Brand Manager of PMA Canada Limited, and he is right now in Vancouver. So, we are on a Zoom meeting and we are on a Zoom podcast. I just hope you guys are going to enjoy this podcast because Rishin is here going to share a lot of things about new immigrants, all the things that you need to know to immigrate after you immigrate in this country. Okay, so Rishin, welcome to Find Frontline and Chai.
Hi everyone. Sorry, no chai out here. I'm just having a bit of water
I
with
can
me, but that's
compensate
about
with
it.
chai a
Yeah, that's cool.
little
That's
bit.
cool. At least one of us have chai, so that's good.
Yeah. So we need the chai to, like because our throats gets parched after
I,
such a big podcast.
well,
So
I'm a Tim
Rishin,
Hortons person. I'm always with coffee, honestly.
yeah. So that's the first thing immigrants need to know that when you come here, you need to know about Tim Hortons. There you go. You have something to drink. So we are whenever you come here, Tim Hortons is the first thing you learn. And so Rishin, tell us about your journey to Canada. How did you come to Canada? What inspired you to come to Canada? And what were the first few challenges that you came to Canada and faced? That is very important for newcomers to know.
Well, obviously, I think Canada was never on the cards seriously. I think it all changed when we came here on a vacation. And just to give you a bit of my background, I was working as a general manager marketing at Lafarge India, which is a pretty big global cement and construction company. It has a very strong presence in Canada as well. So 2016 was when things kind of changed. We came here on a holiday. We visited Calgary because my first cousin lived here. In fact, still lives in Calgary. And we spent about a month in Canada that time during the Indian summer vacations. And we were astounded by what we saw in terms of infrastructure. And I think both my wife and I, we both kind of said this would be a great place for the kids to grow up.
Yes.
And I think one thing led to the other. Obviously, career was a major concern about giving up everything and then coming to Canada. But then we realized that if that's something that needs to be done, so be it. It's a risk worth taking. What's the worst that can happen? We'll have to go back. And while we definitely didn't want to go back, but that was something that was always on the cards in case things didn't work out or it ended up in a situation where we didn't want it to. However, luck was there. We first moved to we moved in July 2018. The first city we lived in was Regina, Saskatchewan. I worked for a startup at that time. My first job, in fact, for 2 days was giving out Uber Eats coupons at a corner of a park because I wanted to get my Canadian income started. So that was a good experience, right? From general manager marketing to giving out Uber Eats coupons. Yeah,
I know.
interesting journey. And then, one thing led to the other. Worked for a startup, did some work in marketing, and then got back to my old industry, which is the alcohol industry. I used to work for the alcohol industry in India as well for quite a bit. And so then we moved to Calgary, and then Vancouver has been home for close to the last 3 years now.
Very good. So, like you said, giving out coupons for Uber Eats. That's like so interesting because everybody goes through that kind of a journey. When you come to a country, when you're in a different country altogether, you learn completely new things, and the way of life in Canada is completely different. So, I feel, uh, what should the immigrants? What are the first few things that immigrants should know when they come to Canada?
So I think one of the first things that they need to understand is they don't have the support of a professional network. The
Professional
the
network.
amount of the amount of professional connections that they would have probably had in their home country, that would come down to literally zero once you arrive here. So you have to build your network from scratch, and in Canada, networking plays a very important role as far as getting jobs are concerned. So
Yes.
obviously, building that network takes time. It requires a lot of patience.
So how are they going
Uh,
to support themselves during that time? Like, what is the time frame that you think we should tell people?
See, I think, and I think this is where the government also plays a role, because when you're immigrating, the government tells you typically that you need to have enough sustainable funds for at least the first 6 months,
Six
and that
months,
I
yeah.
think is a very very critical factor. The
Hmm.
second thing that I also believe is that an immigrant should be willing to do any work possible when they come in. I mean,
Even
it was not, I
scrub
don't
the
want to,
floor.
if
Even.
required, yes,
Mhm.
but at the same time, that should not become the chosen profession, obviously.
Obviously, yeah.
But obviously, you come with a certain amount of savings. Typically, people will come from countries where the value of the currency is lower, so your savings deplete that faster when you come to Canada. Obviously, we
Yeah.
enjoy one of the highest living standards in the world, and the currency conversion rate is also a proof of that.
Yeah.
So it's important to be able to start that Canadian income meter. Uh, I would recommend, as in a you should ideally start off in a job as close to your profession that you want to be in, but very often that's not something that you can do. So you should be open to opportunities. You should be open to income opportunities that come in, while at the same time looking at that career goal of where you are versus where you want to be. So I think
Mhm.
that's something very, very critical that people need to understand. The third thing that people need to understand is a lot of people come from countries where dignity of labor isn't something that's a very, very often talked about subject.
Yeah.
But in Canada, everyone is treated equal. You could be a plumber, you could be a sweeper, you could be the prime minister of the country. Man, you got to do your own groceries, literally. You
Yeah.
got to drive your own
Everybody.
car.
Exactly. No.
No one is belittled for being in a certain profession. So people need to understand that there is absolutely no shame whatsoever in working in certain professions once you arrive in this country.
I don't agree
I'm
with.
sure a professional plumber earns more money than me today in Canada.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's not that bad a profession if you look at it.
Yeah, actually, because in Canada, the vocational, what we call vocational training in India, those
Trade
things are
skills.
very much well paid, highly paid in Canada. That is the reason why people like who are like working outdoors, who are washing windows, for instance, or garbage cleaners, are more highly paid than officers. I mean,
Yeah,
typically what we call officers, you know,
yeah, yeah. White
and
collar.
yeah, and even truck drivers, they earn loads and loads of money.
Yeah.
So, one thing I would like to, tell immigrants who are coming to Canada, like, if you're coming for money, Canada is, and your profession together, if you think that you're going to do well in your profession and earn money, like somebody told me a long time back, if I go to Canada, I'm sure I'm going to earn $50,000 a month, right? Because he's earning somewhere close to. I said no, $50,000 a year maybe, but $50,000 a month, no, nobody earns that kind of money. So that is the
And
kind of, that's the kind of idea people have, in that they are the vice presidents and general managers and presidents of a country. But when you come to Canada, you are going to be red carpeted and ushered in with your qualifications. No, you should be ready to scrub a hotel or restaurant floor and a restaurant bathroom. So that
yeah,
is.
I just like to rephrase that. I mean, it's not that you definitely won't have a red carpet for sure, but I think it's important to be able to relate the experience that you have in your home country versus the opportunities that are here. How well an immigrant is able to tell a potential hiring manager that, look, this is the work that I did somewhere else, and
Yeah.
this is the work that I can actually end up replicating here, and it's going to help your company. That should be the aim for every newcomer to be able to do, so that
Able
you
to
know it's
convince
not that
the
your yeah, so that it's
able.
not that your past experience is zero. It's not. It's up to you to be able to prove how well you can say that yes, your skills are transferable.
Hmm.
And also, I think very importantly, when you look at certain professions, I mean, to your point, when you were talking about people coming to Canada to earn lots of money, I think that's definitely misplaced, and that's something I tell a lot of newcomers, that this is not Dubai.
Yeah.
This is not where you earn pots and pots of money and then you are able to send it back or something like that. It's not the case. You do get paid well. If you look at international standards, you get paid well, but your costs are also high because we
Yeah.
enjoy one of the highest
You're
living
spending
standards.
in dollars.
So
You're
if you're
spending
coming
in
to
dollars.
Canada, you need to come to enjoy the country. You need to come to enjoy the lifestyle. It's a 360. It's not
Yeah.
just like you can suffer and live and you can earn lots of money and save lots of money. You can't do that because taxes are high. For the
Hmm.
simple reason that the taxes ensure that everyone in general lives a certain lifestyle.
Yeah, today I was discussing this thing with a friend of mine. Like, I feel Canada is a socialist country in the garb of capitalism. Like, it distributes the distribution of wealth is so equal because of the tax brackets which keep on rising. The more you earn money, the more the tax bracket rises. That's the kind of thing. And whatever tax money the government acquires from taxation is actually channeled down, trickled
Cloud
down
back
to
in, yeah.
the new immigrants, and
Yeah,
they get the child support benefit. They get the we get the free medical, whatever we, and free education, high school education. So that's kind of a socialist setup in the garb of being a capitalist. So
absolutely.
I would
Absolutely.
always suggest newcomers do not come here for. I'm sure you also agree to that. Do not come here for money, because this is not the land where you earn pots and pots of money and you can become a millionaire in 2 3 years time. You are a respectable middle class citizen. You can be a respectable middle class citizen, and nobody dies here out of because of food, because they cannot eat food, because food basically is lower cost compared to what you are earning. If you convert it to Indian terms, obviously it's higher, but then you know that the basic
From an
food.
income expense ratio perspective.
Yes, the income expense ratio perspective, basic food, the food that the grocery that you need for the month is comparably smaller. I was wondering, like, housing over here is very expensive. Even when you put up in a rental apartment, a rental accommodation, decent rental accommodation will cost you something around $2,000, $2,500 per month. So that is something. What is your say in this?
Well, I think a very critical concern is housing today, and newcomers have it far more difficult. The
Yeah,
reason newcomers have it far more difficult is because they're asked for a credit score.
yeah,
As a
which they don't
newcomer, you
have.
don't have a credit history, and a lot of landlords are very wary of giving out their premises to someone who doesn't have a credit score, because the Canadian laws are very strong and they're biased towards a tenant. Once a tenant goes in and if the tenant is unable to pay rent,
Yeah,
the landlord has a lot of risk and the landlord has to do the running around to get that tenant evicted. So obviously
yeah,
landlords are very wary that if someone does not have a decent credit score or does not have a job, it becomes very difficult to get proper housing. I remember when we first landed in Regina, Saskatchewan, we were at a rental community, which is again something that's not there in a lot of parts of the world. Rental community, for those who don't know, is typically these are huge apartments that have condos that are all let out on rent. There
yeah.
is no ownership. I mean, it's let out
Mm-hmm.
by the community, the rental community company.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that when we had to apply for something like that, we didn't have a credit score. I didn't have a job. We had to pay like 3 or 4 months rent in advance.
Yeah.
So
That's what
the
you
the
want.
choices for a new immigrant as far as housing is concerned is extremely difficult. I think if that is something that is addressed in a
That is,
way,
the government addresses it. Like, also, I feel when I came in, I was just given a few papers, how to apply for health card and SIN card and how to apply for school. But you are not told the basic, very few things that I want to, both of us to list those basic things. Let me go by saying, first of all, the traffic runs on the opposite side from where you're coming from. Most of the countries are coming from the eastern side. I'll tell you one small, very hair-raising story here from my experience. When I came here the first few days, and I also put up in a rental housing for the first few days. So when I was coming to get that housing fixed, I left my small child, my son. He was just 13 years old. He was in that basement where we first came and put up. So he was there with one phone. We just had one mobile phone, and that was a Nokia mobile phone. So he was with his phone. I went out without my phone. Now I saw everything. Okay, that's one other thing you have to see. You have to check out the bus services, and now the apps are available and everything. But on those days there was no app, so we had to check it online. So I said I saw the bus was a particular time, was coming at a particular time. So I went and stood at the bus stop. Now I was standing on the wrong side of the street for the bus. Just imagine, and the bus came from the other end, and this was a very wide street, and it had the lights were already on, and I ran across the street to catch that bus. And the bus actually stopped because they don't stop for anybody. But when the driver saw me running across, sprinting across the street to catch that bus, he actually stopped. And there's another thing which I would add in this. I just take the opportunity to add in this. When you're getting on a bus, make sure you are carrying the exact change with you. Because I remember I was told to get off a bus because I just had a $5 bill in my hand. And I said, I don't have change. He said, you have to have change. I said, so what should I do? Should I get up? He said, yes. Now, I have a bus driver friend who later on told me he shouldn't have asked you to get up.
he
He could have
shouldn't. Yeah,
taken you free of cost
that's what
because you're
I've
a
seen. That's what
newcomer.
I've seen
Yeah.
as well.
But this bus driver was not probably had a different mindset. But I had to get off that bus because I had a $5 bill and there was no change. Coming to a different country with your you're practically walking on your head. So these are the small things,
Yeah,
thought
also I
I'd.
think for public transport, it's important to explore on the internet as to what are the options available for public transport in a city and the options for payment, because bus pass is something that works really well out here.
Yeah.
In fact, in Vancouver, we can actually tap our credit cards
No, that
for
it's become
as a
it's
bus fare.
become quite, yeah. So people should know that, you can,
Yeah,
it's actually very easy. But since we've come with a different mindset, we do not know what is it can be so
correct,
easy, right?
correct.
You can just go online and get that bus pass. This is we have a Presto card in Ontario. I think Vancouver, British Columbia would have something similar
Compass
to
card.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing that newcomers will realize is that public transport is much better than most places that they've come from. And the fact that public transport is safe and public transport is used by people of all strata, irrespective
Yeah.
of how much they earn. It's not that public transport is just for the people who are right at the bottom of the food chain or slightly above. Even the rich people use public transport in these cities.
Like, nobody really cares whether you're driving a Mercedes or a Lamborghini. Nobody cares as long as you're going to work and coming back from work. Because, like, I tell my husband, if I wear a one extra eye on my forehead and go out, people
No
will
one will
think,
notice.
oh, okay, that's a part of your culture. Okay. Nobody will notice, nobody will care. That is the thing that makes you so free as as an individual, that you are just respected just as being a human.
Yeah, you're not judged. I think
You're not
that's the
judged.
important thing.
Nobody
You're not
judges.
judged on your appearance for sure. We should mention about the fact that when you're walking on the street, someone random will just say hi, and you're supposed to say hi rather than
Yeah.
wondering do I know this person? Why did this
Yeah.
person say hi? It's a very
Yeah,
standard thing
exactly.
out
So
here.
when you're having an eye contact with anybody, you say hi. You open the door for the person who's coming behind you. You keep the door open. My
And
husband,
then if
like,
a car
even
is stopped, And then if a car is stopped for you,
Yes.
you acknowledge the fact that it's stopped for you. Thank you very much.
Yes,
At least
thank
the
you
raise of the
very
hand
much.
is
Yes.
a big thing.
Yes, yes. We
Those are
don't
nice things. I like those
nice
things.
things. Yeah. This is
Yep.
I thought probably this is the reason that you are aware of the Canadian culture. You are aware of the Canadian system, how they work, and that is why
Yeah, it's more of a
they ask for.
fitment judgment sort of a thing.
Yeah.
But again, I personally don't think Canadian experience is a must. I think a lot of it is about how well you can communicate, how clearly you can communicate your thoughts, how clearly you can articulate the fact that the experience that you had will stand you in good stead. And I
Yeah.
also think that it requires a bit of accommodation from the employer as well. Because what's happening today in Canada is that you're running out of people. You're running out of
Yeah.
people to man
Yeah.
positions.
Hmm.
But you have to have that cultural sensitivity training or that cultural sensitivity adaptment so that you can actually, you know, what do I say, include talent from other places into your workplace. But probably initially, and people are smart, you probably need to handhold them initially to say, you know what,
This is how you do
this
it.
is how the office culture works, this is how
Mm.
things work. Maybe sort of a buddy system
Yeah.
where someone clearly explains that, look, this is how we function in meetings.
But people
This
from
is
India who are
this is
coming
our
as a vice,
punctuality.
for instance, people from India come as a vice president, and you join as a manager over here or an assistant, a general manager over here, they already have a bloated head, and their head is even more bloated.
Exactly. So it
So
takes a
they
lot of
will
time to
not
make your
even,
own coffee in the
yeah.
office, to get
So
your
they
own
will not
food.
even allow you to handhold them. Say, I know everything. Don't talk to me like this. So that is the reason which why I think Canadian government adopts this system of Canadian having a Canadian experience first, because you need to basically bite the dust and find out what the country is all about. It's going to give you a lot of things, a
So the
lot.
kind of
This country,
people the kind of people you mentioned are the kind of people who get eliminated at interview stages. Maybe that's the Canadian experience that's required.
that is
For
that's
me,
the
I think
reason.
one of the biggest advantages for me that way was that I've traveled abroad quite a bit, even when I lived in India,
Hmm.
and I've worked with a lot of people from different nationalities. So I think that sort of what do I say, cultural sensitivity had come into me. Even though I'll be honest, even I found it difficult occasionally. I struggled to find my footing initially when I started working in a white collar environment in Canada.
Hmm.
But I think I was better prepared, A, because of communication, and B, because of the fact that I had exposure. But a lot of people who
Exposure.
come from
Yeah.
uh, their home countries don't have this exposure. They've probably seen their own country, own city, and the next place that they've seen is Canada.
Canada.
So
Exactly.
it takes a bit of hand holding to bridge that culture gap, I would
Yeah.
say. But whether the government has time, whether offices have time, I don't know. But that's something that definitely would help.
Uh,
It's almost like a football league or a hockey league where you've got a player who's suddenly coming from, say, Russia or suddenly coming from Africa, and they've joined your team.
Yeah.
You've got that person in for his or her skill, but you have to be able to include him or her into the team culture
That's
for
very
that
true.
person to feel confident and warm, so that that person is able to perform in that environment. But if the
Exactly.
environment is cold, that person will not adapt. And
That's
that's what we see
exactly.
with a lot of sports teams, that you get most talented players, but they can't mingle with the rest of it, and unfortunately they don't end up being successes in their
Yeah.
respective teams. It's very similar out
Exactly.
here.
Yeah. So now we can come to Rishin. We should discuss the housing. Like I feel, particularly among Bengalis, I've seen this thing. Like I was just telling the other day to my friend, this movie. Remember, we saw this movie called Dirty Picture, where Vidya Valance says the basic of movie cinema, that there are three things about cinema: entertainment, entertainment, and entertainment.
Yeah.
So about Canada, about the ultimate goal of Canadians who come here to settle down, three things: real estate, real estate, and real estate. So I feel that everybody, whoever it is, doctors, engineers, or anybody who comes in, are aiming to become a real estate agent at the end of the day. Because why? Because Canada is, as we discussed earlier, Canada is really not a place for money. But these people still have that misconception that Canada, if you come to Canada, you become rich, which is why they have been telling that their people, folks back home, and they want to spend that kind of money when they go back or whatever. So that this misconception drives them towards money, and they think that real estate is the place where you get a lot of money, you become a millionaire. Eventually, even in real estate, like it's just you're just living hand to mouth the same way you're living in a day-to-day normal job. So what do you think of it? How do you like advise the newcomer?
Well, I've seen a fair bit of that happening. What you said. At the same time, I would say it's an individual's choice.
Mhm.
Uh, my recommendation to everybody who asks me about life in Canada is that don't live your life for Facebook or WhatsApp. You need to live your life for
Absolutely.
yours. You need to live your
Yeah.
life for yourself. You need to cut your coat as per the cloth that you have. I have seen people living lifestyles which are way beyond their incomes. So I don't think there is. It's like marriage. There is no right time or wrong time.
Mm.
It's what suits you. At the same time, what I understand from Canadian real estate is that in the bigger cities, it's a very good investment. The other advantage which doesn't exist in a lot of other countries is that here your monthly payout on rent versus your monthly payout on mortgage, there isn't huge amount to choose from.
And there's another thing which is very, very important that we have to talk about. Though I don't know whether you or I we are experts on this, but we can discuss surely is how a newcomer can build a credit in this country. Because ever since I've come here, there has not been a single um, concrete or substantial advice from even from the people in the banks. Some people say you buy things from with the credit card and then you pay it off, and that's how you build your credit. Some people say don't use your credit cards at all, keep them inside locked, pay them off and keep them locked inside the cupboard, you build your credit. Some people say you have only one or two credit cards. Some people have say you have multiple credit cards but don't use all of them. So there is a huge controversy, and I think the government should be able to be able to advise. There should be some workshops where newcomers are advised how to build their credit in the first few years of their lives, and of course also getting the license. That is another point which we thought of discussing, getting the G2
So,
license. It's so important. Anyway, credit. Let's talk about the credit
so
first.
let's start about credit. So, what I've understood so far, and
Yeah,
this is my personal understanding, one is your credit card bills need to be paid on time,
yeah,
and you need to keep using it so that banks understand that you're a responsible debt risk
okay,
that they're giving. If they're
yeah,
That's one part. At the same time, you should not over leverage your credit card. By that, I mean that you shouldn't spend very, very close to your limit. I understand that you should not exceed spending from 40 to 45% of your credit card limit.
yeah. That is the percentage I was talking about.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
it
That shows the
60%?
bank.
Is it 40%? What is the leverage that the bank will
From
look?
people I've spoken to, my experience is 40 to 45%,
Okay.
ideally.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there will be certain months where it might go up if you have a big ticket purchase, but in
Mm.
general, I think
Yeah,
maintaining a 40, 45% or even a 50% average is good.
yeah. And
The
how many
third and
credit
the
cards should
most,
you have?
well, it's individual's choice as long as you're being able to pay off everything. But that's the next question that's the next point that I'll come to. The more the number of credit cards or the more the number of loans that you have, the greater the number of credit checks on your account.
Yeah, okay.
So every time a credit check happens, a credit check is basically when the financial institution checks your credit score and sees whether you're a responsible risk.
Mm.
Every time that happens, your credit score goes down.
Goes down.
Yeah. So say you're going to buy a car. You go to buy a car and you're buying it on loan. So
Mm.
you have a monthly payout. So the bank will see whether the car company will see whether you're a responsible risk. But if you go to five different car companies and all five are checking on your credit score, then that's five credit score hits.
Hits, exactly.
So you may be buying one car, but
Mm-hmm.
you are actually ending up getting your credit score hit five times.
Mm. So what happens if your credit score hits and then you decide to buy a house? For instance, you are paying off very well, okay, and then supposing you have bought recently a car, and then you decide to go for a house, and your credit score is not good enough for a house because you just recently bought a car,
Yeah.
right? So,
So the bank will check how many open loans you have. So
in
it
other
depends on how
words,
many. It depends on how many loans you have. It depends on whether you are servicing credit card debt, which
hmm,
is servicing credit card debt is different from a standard credit card monthly payment.
hmm,
It is basically you are unable to pay a debt. That debt has accumulated, and now you are using a payment plan to pay out that money. Those
yeah.
are very very serious, you know, debt risks that you have.
In other words, Canada encourages you to live a middle class life, like not go into a flashy lifestyle. I mean,
Well, it depends on how much you
moderate
earn.
life.
Yeah, I
It
think I
depends on
wouldn't say
how much
middle
you earn
class. I
also.
would say it's a Canada definitely encourages you to live within your means, is what I would say.
Also, there is another concept of line of credit. So, what happens when you get a line of credit? Is does your credit score increases or does it go down?
Well, typically, if you ask for a credit limit increase on your own,
Hmm.
your credit score will go down. If the bank is offering you, so
Hmm. Hmm, hmm.
again, based on your credit limit, we are pleased to offer you a line of credit.
Yeah.
Those don't affect your credit score. What affects your credit score is if you use that line of credit, because that becomes an open loan account on your
Yeah.
system.
And what about the licensing? That's so complicated. I found when I came to Canada, the having to you have to go through the G1, then G2, then G to get your license, and it's like a huge test you have to give. Nobody passes on the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
first attempt, I
yeah.
think.
Well,
You
I
have
got my
fine.
license. I got my license in Saskatchewan, so it differs from province to province.
Province to province. Okay.
Licensing authority is different. So in Saskatchewan, if you don't have prior driving history, you have to wait for 9 months from the time that you
9 months.
get your learner's license till you're able to appear for the first road test. In terms of license, obviously it differs from province to province, but at the same time, what I would say is that driving is a life skill and which should be taken very seriously. So if a lot of people come in with the confidence that, oh, I've been driving for 15 years or 20 years, I'm going to
Hmm.
pass easily. Uh, I always recommend everyone to spend that 400-500 bucks and brush up your lessons with a trained specialist. The reason I say that is that it's a life skill.
Hmm.
You really need this to survive in this country, especially with the harsh climate from time to
Yeah.
time. Secondly, Canadians value road safety very, very seriously, and violations are often penalized in a very, very harsh way. So, and it affects your monthly insurance. Yes.
Here you cannot rush. Like the trainer, I remember, taught me how to stop. In India, I'm not saying India, in other countries, they tell you how to speed past an orange light. Whenever you see an orange light, you want to go through it. Right here, they teach you how to stop and how to wait, because waiting is very important to reaching your destination.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
rushing actually doesn't help you reach the destination.
Yeah. And here you don't hear honking. You hear,
No.
I mean, you have pedestrians generally respecting traffic lights. So I would say overall driving conditions are easier. But
So,
yes,
what would you say is the terrible thing about Canada? We've been already discussing the good things. So, what is the bad thing about Canada that we face, apart
well,
from
I
the
think
weather, of course?
I think
Unpredictable weather.
it's one thing that I definitely feel is that there is still some amount of xenophobia that exists, especially in terms of hiring people in corporate places, which
Mhm.
is why people have to go that extra mile to convince employees, potential hiring companies that they are skilled. Very
Yeah,
often, that judgment takes place on factors which are not in your control.
yeah.
Sometimes it does happen that people are biased by how you speak, people are biased by your
How you
skin
look,
color and things like
skin
that,
color.
how you look. I mean, I won't say that it's everyone is bad. I'm not saying that it's endemic of the society. there are people, obviously, I owe my career to a lot of people who've taken the chance on me. But I think there should be more people who can take their chance on newcomers, especially. uh, I wouldn't say that you need to compulsorily look at increasing diversity, but yes, you should be able to recognize talent irrespective of how they look or speak.
And there is another thing called resume writing in this country, which I think the newcomers should be aware of. There's a completely different, a very smart way of writing a resume. You have to be very specific about where you are applying and how much your skills are transferable to that particular kind of job. So that there are expert resume writers in this country. Resume is a very important thing. People actually go through resumes, and bots go through resumes first to see if the keywords are matching. Then only your resume goes through. I guess
I
we've
think just to
covered
give you
everything.
just to give you a basics on that. Sorry, just
Yeah,
to give
yeah.
you
Please
one
go ahead.
basic. I think the basic structural difference between an Indian resume and a Canadian resume is that in Indian resume you talk about the work that you do.
Hmm.
In a Canadian resume, you talk about your achievements in the job. I think
Okay.
that's a major difference.
Or the work. Okay,
And
that's a good
yeah,
good point.
so in India, for example, I would say I ran promotions
Hmm.
I ran promotions across 6 markets.
Okay.
In Canada, that would be I ran promotions that achieved a sales value increase of 40%
Oh, okay.
across six markets.
Hmm.
So that's where the
Hmm.
structural change happens, that your results that you've achieved are highlighted in a Canadian resume. Yeah. In terms of a cover letter is important in terms of you being able to articulate why you fit in this job.
Yeah.
It's almost like your first round interview.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that why do you want to join us is best articulated in a cover letter.
I guess we've covered most of what the newcomers would want to know in a after while starting life in Canada. First of all, coming to Canada is a big deal, and then we can include them. And I've been writing a lot of blogs on this also, try to encourage newcomers and trying to inspire them. And
Yes, and I should
yeah,
recognize one. I read one of them, and that was part of my learning
part of your
journey for
journey.
for for wanting to move here, and you
Yeah,
know
I'm
about
very
that. So I've
happy.
I've told you that more
Yeah, you
than
told me
once.
that millions of times. So that's like I not only you. There's been a lot of people actually who have called me. Like one person actually did an ISD from some Srirampur in the middle of the night. Like it was middle of the night for him, and he told me that I should be grateful. I should be. Like I'm blessed that I'm actually influencing so many people's lives. I mean, I really feel blessed that way. So really, I'm grateful to you guys for watching my channel, to reading my blogs, reading my books. I mean, I feel grateful. And thank you, Rishin, today for being my guest of honor and enriching the people and giving them more and more knowledge, people about Canada. And because we have both come to Canada, and he has a different experience, I have a different experience, and you guys will also have a different experience. So once you come here, you can also share the experience with me and with the rest of the world. The more we share, the more we care, and the more we can become more knowledgeable about moving into another country. Thank you, Rishan, for being with
Thank
us.
you. Honored
You
to be
have
here.
a
Thank
good.
you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.